Hey, Vertigo listeners, welcome back to another episode. Thank you for tuning in. And let's talk a little bit about air healing and wellness. That's EIR, air healing and wellness. If you're not there getting a massage, relaxing, and rejuvenating, sitting in the sauna, or maybe even grabbing a bite at Deja Brew, then what are you doing? Let's go. 5752 US Route 11, Pulaski, New York. That's air, EIR, healing and wellness. You need to get there. Now on to the episode.
Old school. He looks like a radio man. Yeah, I say that every one of my. I think I mentioned that. Like when I got the headset on, I'm in the zone.
Hey, Vertigo Nation, welcome back to another episode. I am really excited to be here with everybody, and thank you so much for tuning in. If you are a new listener, thank you for finding us. And I'm really excited because I'm just watching the numbers grow with Vertigo, and because this is a passion project, it's obviously very exciting for me to see that happening. So I just want to extend a huge thank you to everybody who's been listening. And like I said, if this is your first time listening, thank you so much for finding us. And stay tuned, because I don't think that this episode is going to disappoint. Because today, on the microphone across from me, I have the lovely Minna, who is here. She was here in the last episode also when we were talking about social media. So if you haven't listened to that episode, definitely go back and check it out. For those who don't know, Minna and I are married. She is also the owner of Air Healing and Wellness in Pulaski, which you've heard me do plugs on the beginning of the podcast for. And so she is here. Anything you wanna say?
Sorry in advance.
No. Listen, the social media episode was so good, and
I know, but I didn't plan on. We had quite a schedule blunder today that we definitely weren't expecting. So
Yeah.
I didn't expect to be here today, and I definitely don't want to be on it all the time and just bore people with my shenanigans. So
No, I understand, and we did. It was kind of a. It was just a weird day today. So
definitely didn't go as planned, and that's fine,
Yeah.
and it's fine. But yeah, so you're stuck with me today.
Yeah, no, and I think this is great because I think that this is going to be a great conversation, because this is one that I've kind of been toying around in the back of my mind, but wasn't really sure how to go about it, because I think, well, I'm just going to tell you what the thoughts are that have been rambling around in my head, and then I can talk a little bit about why it's going to take a special guest to be able to talk about it. And I think you are actually somebody who has some experience, because you run the Air Healing and Wellness, a healing spa, and being a Reiki master, I think that you're going to have some really great insight into this topic. So today, we're going to be talking about spirituality and meeting people where they're at with that, and how do we connect over our differences, because people of different faiths or different beliefs obviously are so quick to judge one another. But I think, and you have shown me, that there are a lot more connecting points than there are dividing points. For example, I was thinking of the coexist sticker that people have on their bumper stickers. We have one on our vehicle, for example, but it's got all the different faiths, right? It's got the Star of David for Judaism. It's got the cross, obviously, for Christianity. What other symbols? I can't think of all the symbols off the top of my head, but it represents.
Yeah, it represents kind of faiths across the board,
Yeah.
and just the message is, just as it says, coexist. We can all jive together. But I do believe that there's a certain skill that some people lack that kind of hold them back from being able to just accept and love, and I've certainly had my struggles in my 43 years with experiences, but, with it coming down heavier, in my opinion, especially being so wrapped up into politics. I think it's a good thing to talk about as far as just being able to connect with faiths and spirituality that, A, you don't know anything about, or B, that you might not agree with, or, so yeah, I think that bumper sticker is pretty phenomenal. I do wish people would try to heed the message. Yeah,
coexist.
Right. So.
No, I think you're right. It's crazy because it's definitely, I remember a long time ago taking a class. It was like part of participation in government, and I think we had to do debates. And I remember the teacher at the time making a joke like, if you want to stay out of a debate, there's 3 things you should never talk about, right? Politics, religion, and your relationship, right? Because those are the 3 things that people get fired up, right? And I thought that was funny, and I've carried that with me all these years,
Yeah. And I wish I was in that class with you because I would have debated.
Yeah. Well, that's what it was for.
Right. I was captain of my debate team in college, by the way. Pretty proud of that. I know my parents would be shocked, but whatever.
It's a surprise.
If more people had the skill set that I want to talk about, and it's so simple, that wouldn't even be like an unwritten rule about, don't talk about those things.
Right.
So basically, for me, being open-minded is it.
Yeah.
That's that skill. It's
it is.
literally nothing magical. It's nothing hard. It's nothing that can't be accomplished. If every person would just keep an open mind and not be so quick to have the ideals in a conversation, regardless of the topic, that there's got to be a right or a wrong.
Yep.
And it's got to be black and white, and it's got to be a certain way. And, if we just kind of put stuff like that to the side and stayed open-minded, in your head you can go, I don't like that. That's garbage. That's not for me.
Right.
But if you just zip it and use your ears and, stay open-minded, I think that a whole world of difference would come about.
Absolutely.
And that's my opinion.
No, and I think it's a valid opinion. I think that's the hard thing, And in true Vertigo fashion, I want to talk about this stuff because I think it is important. There is so much in the world that divides us. Turn on the TV or wherever you grab your news from, social media, whatever it is that is your news source or your to-go place for headlines, there is so much that we can count on right now that will divide us. And religion or spirituality, I like to say spirituality over religion, because religion to me is like, I don't know, it's what it's the sit down, stand up, kneel, the dogma to it. You know what I mean? Where spirituality, I think, is very different.
One of the terms is a little bit more open. You can be spiritual and be a devout Christian. You can be spiritual and be atheist, or you just have your own. It's more of a wider spectrum. And again, this is just my opinion.
Yeah.
To me, my interpretation of being spiritual is your own definition, however you see that. So religion is a heavier term that it just feels so closed in and locked in.
Right.
Where spirituality gives that leeway to kind of make it your own and interpret it the way that you want to, from my experience and what I've seen here. Yeah.
No, I agree. I agree with that, because I think, that was the turn for me, at least too, in my life. I grew up.
I was going to say, let's take it back and just talk about how you grew up, because you grew up vastly different from me far as
I did.
Religion, so to speak.
No, and I think that's a good place. So, let's talk about, because, again, we can kind of model, like in social media, we had very different opinion. Well, not very different. That's not fair to say. We have different opinions a little bit when it comes to social media, which, can I do a shameless plug real quick and just say, you can find Vertigo now on Facebook, TikTok, right?
Yeah.
Facebook. Instagram, right? Thanks very much for you actually setting all of it up. Not a lot of it. You set all that up for Vertigo, so I really appreciate. Yeah, and it's so neat if that's all right to use. I don't know if neat is offensive to somebody. It's so cool to yeah. So don't you? A quick side story. Don't you? And I'm gonna age myself here, but way back in the like '90s when Madonna was popular, she had that movie that came out. It was her concert movie, and Kevin Costner was there at the time. And Kevin Costner, she's like, "So how'd you like the show?" And he said, "It was neat." And she like turned around and did the like gag me, sign like. So now ever since that clip, because that clip made like headline news way back then, I'm always like, "Is neat okay?" Like.
I was a kid. I'm younger.
Some people, yeah, you are younger. Yeah,
I'm a bit younger.
Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about that. So I grew up. I'm going to say, I'm going to use the word religious because I didn't discover spirituality until much later. And so throughout this conversation, we'll talk about that too. But for me, I grew up very religious. I grew up in a very probably, typical American household where, every Sunday we were in church all lined up in the pew looking like, that perfect little family unit. Grew up Lutheran, so anybody who doesn't know, Lutheran is very close to Catholic. Not to get in a history lesson, but really the only difference between Lutherans and Catholics, Martin Luther, the founder of the Lutheran Church, attacked the 95 Thesis. We learned about that in the Reformation in school. I don't know if they still teach that, but they did when I was in school. So yeah, he had his 95 Thesis of things that he thought were wrong with the Catholic Church. He never meant for it to be a split from the Catholic Church. So anyway, my point in talking about that is there's a lot of things that are very similar between Catholic and Lutheran churches. So I grew up in that.
Very immersed, though. You were in the worship.
Yeah, I was in the worship team.
Yeah.
As a musician, I was a drummer and then a guitar player and then a keyboardist. So I covered all three. But yeah, I was part of the worship team. Actually had a pretty successful music career for a little while as a Christian musician, actually, toward the West Coast, toward the East Coast, at least, went up and down, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, New York, all over New York, so I grew up.
So you weren't this year, at church just Sunday, you were there?
Yeah, no, we were,
days.
Yeah, you're right, yeah, we were immersed in it. It very much was part of my childhood. It was very much an expectation, I think. But that comes with its whole another kind of group of I don't know how to put it. It ties in with mental health though, because
sure.
There is so much that I've had to undo, I think, in my adult life from growing up in that kind of
very organized, strict religion.
Yeah. Just a lot of the typical stuff I think people deal with, shame, guilt, because, that's really, in my opinion, and I know that some listeners, if you have a different experience, I think that's awesome. First of all, I think that's incredible. For me, there's a lot of shame and guilt that was wrapped into being part of the church and, how you handle yourself and what you do and all that. Yeah.
A lot of expectations and obligations.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that was very much how I grew up. And how about you?
So I grew up quite opposite. We weren't a religious family. I have family members who are very religious, namely Irish Catholic. But, under my mom and stepdad's house, we did not go to church. Nothing like that. It wasn't even spoken about in our house. And then when we went with our dad, we belonged to a Unitarian church.
Yeah.
And the Unitarian church was just a completely different experience. So I also had a friend who, very religious, love her. And so I would spend the weekends at her house and I would go to church with her. So I had something kind of to compare my Unitarian church with versus church hanging out with her.
Can I ask you a question? So just thinking about that real quick. So because I've never been to a Universalist church, although you and I have talked about it quite a bit. Did you notice difference? Because it sounds to me
100%.
like the Universalist church is very accepting.
Oh, 100%. Well, so that's what I was getting at. So I went to church with my friend because I was hanging out at her house. And so I wasn't invested. I was young. I was, preteen, teen. And so I don't want to say that I was invested in the word of her church. As a matter of fact, I had quite a negative experience there. But I wanted to hang out with her. She was my bestie, and I just went because she went. So I tagged along. So the Unitarian church, completely different.
Yeah.
All walks of life. Every week there was a different pastor or preacher from whatever denomination. I mean, there was Catholic, there was Christian, there was pagan. There were, and again, I was young, and I guess I didn't really know I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know, but I knew that the people that were around me were all vastly different.
Right.
Whereas when I went to church with my friend, or if, God forbid, we ended up in Catholic church with my aunt, it's a whole nother episode, but very stiff, very regimented, very uncomfortable, very, very intimidating in my experience. In the Unitarian church, there was all walks of life. I mean, I remember my dad talking about his witch friends, his pagan friends, his Wiccan friends, which, there's a whole umbrella of pagans.
Yep.
There was Christians, and I do remember the female pastor. Is that the right term for her? Is a female a pastor?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, well, it doesn't really. So pastor is just, I don't.
This is where I'm very ignorant in as far as terms and like.
Yeah, I think denomination really chooses because, for example, when I was going to church, we didn't have an actual building. It's a whole long story, but I went to a church called Prince of Peace Lutheran Church. They separated from another church, and so for the longest time, they were in basements of other church. And the only reason I bring that up is because what I learned in that time period was, so the Lutheran Church calls the reverend or pastor, and I know so do Methodist, I think. But I know, like, Episcopalians, they use reverend. So I think it's really just denominational.
I'm going to call her pastor.
Yeah.
Just because I am not very knowledgeable with all the verbiage and the terms and things like that. So she was female.
Yep.
And I remember
But that's a big deal for when you were a kid, honestly, because that...
Oh, it gets better.
Yeah.
It gets better now looking back because she had a rainbow shawl.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yep. And I remember sitting in the pew with my dad, and I just loved her rainbow garb. And I thought, man, that's so cool. Like, they're not colorful like this at the other church that I go to sometimes with my friend. And very stiff. And I was so drawn to that. I didn't at the time realize that was the symbol for LGBTQ plus and all of that. In my church, there were gay, lesbian, there were transgender.
Yep.
I remember seeing females that looked very different, very masculine.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a big deal. Nobody felt uncomfortable. And, so I do remember sitting in this church just looking around at
and what
how
crazy,
vastly different. Yeah. And so later I learned that pastor was a lesbian. She loved getting up there. She was, oh my God, she was incredible. I remember, I have goosebumps still.
I'm getting goosebumps from you telling the story, and
I knew nothing of it as a kid. There were no point outs. There were no labels. There were no, well, make sure you know that she's this. And you came in as you were, and nobody asked questions. Nobody, it was nothing. You all sat amongst each other, and it was the best energy I remember from my childhood.
Yeah.
Vastly different from the experiences that I had at my friend's church.
Right. And so that's neat because that you can compare that because I didn't get to.
Yeah.
And I grew up very narrow-minded, one-sided.
Yeah.
And so for you having that experience, I mean, that's, in my opinion, that's incredible.
Oh, I remember meeting all sorts of cool people. And I remember going, to my dad's, and he said that, we were cooking out or whatever, and he said some of his witch friends were coming over.
Yeah.
And I got so excited. I'm like, oh my God, what witches? Like, what?
Right.
Like, how cool is this? And then when they showed up and they didn't have the hats on and they didn't have the cape and nobody had a broomstick, and I thought,
what kind of witch is it?
That's a freaking liar. Yeah. Like, these aren't witches.
What kind of witch is this?
And that was really the start of, where my dad kind of tapped into the pagan way and the crystal and the healing. And so that was my introduction there. the most beautiful people ever. And I got to learn the difference between paganism, Wiccan,
Right.
all the umbrella terms. But I got a note too, like, I will never forget, and this sticks in my mind, being in church with my friend, and we're sitting there because we're waiting to go downstairs, because downstairs was where it was fun.
Yeah.
You had, I don't know what it was called, Sunday school.
Sure. Yeah.
You got to go downstairs and fart around with your friends.
So this is the Christian, not
This-
the Universalist church.
Correct.
This is the Christian. Okay.
Correct. This is
Oh,
my
yeah,
friend's
yeah,
church
yeah.
up here. And I can't remember. I'm not positive it was Baptist. I can't remember. And I don't really know that I want to throw any of that out there. But anyway, I remember you sat upstairs in the pew for X amount of time, and then you got to break. The adults stayed upstairs. The kids went in the basement for the Sunday school. And I remember it like it was yesterday. And I remember they were talking about, the topic was anti-gay. And I remember their pastor talking about all the negative things about gay and how, and I was like, I don't even know what this means.
Right.
Literally had
I
no,
see- yeah,
I
yeah.
had no idea. I didn't know what gay meant.
Right.
I was too young to think about anything sexual.
Right. Right. Yeah,
I
understand that.
Yeah,
For
and
sure.
and I just remember the negativity and the negative energy surrounding this
Right.
conversation. And I thought it was very bashing and very mean, but what did I care?
Yeah.
I didn't know any gay people. I didn't know what gay meant. It had nothing to do with me, but I'll never forget the feeling that I had in the pit of my stomach where it said, no, that's not right.
Right.
That person is not okay to be saying those things. And I remember leaving, and I do believe that was one of the last times that I had stepped foot in that church.
Yeah.
And for no other reason than I did not care for what they said. And again, had no idea what he was talking about.
Right.
I couldn't relate.
Right.
I knew intuitively that the word that they were talking was not for me.
Yeah, and I just want to jump in real quick because I think you've made so many good points in that. And then, so one of the things I want to say is I hear you when it comes to the messages that I think that I too received at the Lutheran church that I was going to. Even though Lutheran church, at least my Lutheran church that I went to, were a little more open-minded, but still not in the sense of like the universalist experience. And they weren't so fire and brimstone like other churches can be, but there was still like a fear, like you fear God. And man, we can talk about the mental health stuff that comes from that too, but it's pretty incredible when you think about it. But then the universalist side, like I'm a little jealous in a sense because you got that experience with the Universalist church that I always felt in my heart. I always felt in my heart like there's more. Yeah. There's more than just this. And then you try to talk to somebody, especially as a kid, about that, and they want to shut it down immediately because their role, at least how it was in my church, right? Their role was to make you in the image of God.
Yeah.
So it was, you shouldn't be thinking like that, or
You towed a line.
Yeah,
you had a line to toe.
Yeah, and discipline was huge, man. I mean, discipline was allowed back then in the church from people who weren't your parents.
See, I don't know anything of that, but I remember when my parents, obviously they were divorced at the time.
Yeah.
We moved up here out of the Syracuse area, and it was far different. And again, that was the experience up here with that church that I had. So, being able, it was almost like I lived in two different worlds because again, I went to church
I can imagine.
with my friend, loved her, I don't want to like crap on it because it was a lot of good times. But when we were in Syracuse and we would go to places, metaphysical shops, we spent a lot of time in Seven Rays bookstore.
Yeah. Oh, I love that place.
With all
I
my
love
dad's
that
pagan
place.
friends. And, I've been making crystal jewelry since I can't even remember. We used to make it jewelry. It's just, you got to be your true self. And then when we came home, it was kind of like, all right, well, we're kind of keep that to yourself. And there was that air about, just kind of, it wasn't harsh, but it was kind of, let's just kind of not talk about that stuff. And
why?
I don't,
right?
yeah.
Why?
And I still don't know as a kid. And again,
judgment for sure, especially in communities where there is a larger, but why? What harm is there in that? Like, I know the Christian thing is going to be like, you're going to go to hell. I don't know.
I don't know. So those were my
I don't know.
two different experiences, and I teetered back and forth
Yeah.
for a long time, but I just had a completely different experience than you,
Yeah.
and just
Well, yeah.
learned to be so open, and we
Right.
just down at the Universalist Church, everybody loved everybody. Everybody was hugging. Everybody. There was no segregation in where people sat. There was nothing. And it was kind of a crapshoot. You really didn't know what sermon you were going to
Yeah.
get, but everybody loved it and everybody listened to it, and it was.
Isn't that
It was
incredible?
it was a really
I
great
got-
experience.
I got goosebumps from it because I just think about the fact of like being able to learn instead of divide on it, right? Like have the opportunity to learn, because I've got this philosophy that I'm always uncomfortable putting out there because of the whole, I think because of how I grew up, right?
Sure.
Because it's just, I don't know, that whole don't talk about it. But I always had this thought of like, what if each one of us are kind of holding a spiritual puzzle piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that there's nobody's quote unquote wrong, nobody's quote unquote bad. But what if we all are holding on to it? Because I just can't imagine that in this whole world, there's only one way to believe things. Like I just have a hard time with that. And when you've got, other faiths that are just as older even than Christianity,
I mean, bring it back to my roots with paganism.
Yeah.
For those of you out there who like history and want to do a little bit of digging, Christianity was stolen from the pagans, and was very much written off the back of paganism.
Absolutely.
And so, ironically, for Christians back then to come down so hard on pagans as they're taking their beliefs and their holidays and
Yeah.
their way of life and just stealing it, and then to
Yep.
come down so hard. I mean, there's really cool history in that. So if you
Yeah.
guys are history, I'm not going to get into it, but
Yeah, no, and-
check that out. And so that's, I think, what you're talking about is like, if you really look to the root of a lot of these faiths, it's all the same thing. We all believe the same thing. We all come
Yeah.
from the same,
It's true.
we're cut from the same
It's true.
cloth, as so they say.
I'm going to throw this out there, and this isn't necessarily a talking point, but I just find it interesting when you think about how many ways people can think about religion and spirituality. And so somebody had said to me once, we were chatting, and they said, I had heard that the Vikings are correct. We're on the verge, like Ragnar. Like I can't speak to all. I'm more newly versed in that because of the Viking show and such like that, and it drew my curiosity. And if anybody knows me, I'm a research hound. Like
Yeah.
I get on something, I can't get off it. But anyway, this person had told me that they thought that Loki was in charge of like the mass chaos because religious wars and
Yeah.
and Loki was being the trickster is responsible for all that, and so it just goes to prove that the Vikings were right. So it's
Yeah.
just crazy in the sense of like there are so many different ways that you can think about it. And at first, when this person told me that, I scoffed, right, because I was
Right.
like, okay, yeah, dude, right, really, fucking Loki's but then I think what was happening. So that was told to me by somebody in Syracuse, because I remember driving home that night, and I think I told you the story. And then all of a sudden I started thinking about it, and I'm like, well, why couldn't that be true? Right? I
Right.
mean, if that's how you grow up and those are what your beliefs
Right.
are, why would you think that that's crazy talk? Right? I mean,
Because you're told to think a lot of
Well,
things.
right.
In certain religions, you're very much told. You're just fed and fed. There's just
brainwashing in a lot of ways.
very much so, and there's so much that's open to interpretation, and a lot of things that are miscommunicated and misconstrued. I mean, even the term heathen.
Yeah.
It's a slang term for godless savage.
Yep.
Or, just a wild, feral, out of control person.
Right.
Ironically, heathens believe in many gods.
Yep.
So just the complete twist.
Uncivilized person.
Yes. And so just the complete twist of the term,
Yep.
you know, and heathenism is a branch of paganism.
Yep.
So just little things like that, you know, if we stopped and let our wheels turn a little bit and did a little bit of, you know, research, our wheels would turn and we could say,
Yep.
you know, there are commonalities. This
Yep.
is perception. This is, you know, your beliefs aren't all that off. And if you do believe them, you're not a bad person. And
Right.
to kind of go back and forth. Now, you know, fast forward, I remember being so nervous to be here in Pulaski. And I love it here. The community's phenomenal.
Yeah,
But
it's so accepting, actually.
There
Very
is,
accepting.
yeah, very much so. But growing up here with that kind of air of we had to kind of keep to ourselves about our weekends with Dad and going to this church and the people that we dealt with, it caused me to be fearful of
Yeah.
how I was going to present myself when I opened Air Healing and Wellness. Now, Air, spelled E-I-R, she is a Norse goddess of healing. I try to put that out there on social media, but it's not really important. It's important to me more than it is with the functionality of the
Right.
spa. But that's
Right, it means
why the
something to
spa,
you.
right?
Right.
And so I also remember thinking, okay, well, I'm going to put myself out there as a Reiki master. I hope I didn't get burned at the stake, you know, and
Yeah.
the complete opposite happened. Honest to God,
Yeah.
it was my own insecurity. There was no reason for me to feel that way. This has unearthed this tribe of people around here that I didn't even know exist because I think I was being close-minded. I thought, okay,
Yeah.
well, I grew up around here. The culture is a little bit different. Lifestyle is a little bit different. I really just hope that people see me for me and they don't worry about what my religious beliefs
Right.
are and spiritual beliefs are. And I hope that people don't see the term Reiki and get scared or,
Right.
you know, and so I thought to myself, well, I'll just massage if
Yeah.
nobody comes in for Reiki, but I definitely want to put that out there. It's been
Well,
freaking awesome.
And if you don't mind too with the Reiki stuff, I remember too. This goes to show what a mixed message even you get on something like Reiki. So this was even before you and I met. I was in Pennsylvania, and my parents lived in Pennsylvania, and I had gone to visit them. My stepdad specifically he's a Lutheran pastor, and so he had invited me to go to this workshop that he was going to, and there's tons of like Christian colleges in Pennsylvania, and it was in Erie, Pennsylvania. I don't remember which one, but there's tons
Yeah.
of Bible colleges and such.
That's where my friend went to college.
Yeah,
she's
exactly.
awesome.
Right. And so, anyway, the reason I'm telling the story is we went there, and when we got there, I realized it was a Catholic college.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're walking to wherever, we're walking through the dormitory or whatever it was to get to the meeting place, whatever. And I remember we were passing where the nuns were housed, and there was a sign on the door that said, Reiki today, sister, but sister so-and-so, the Reiki master. And that was my first marriage of that thought of like, wait a minute. Reiki, Catholic church, Catholic college, like these things can
Like
coexist.
what?
Yeah. And so that was the first time that because prior, and this just goes to show how our minds, we get one track and we don't think about this stuff. But like there is a Catholic church in Pennsylvania practicing Reiki, and that blew my fucking mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so fast forward to you being a Reiki master, and
Yeah.
people don't realize that has nothing actually to do with religion at all.
Well, and you can kind of, for me, again, I've tried different churches, and I know that when you and I got together, I wanted to do my best to compromise on what your needs were as far as religion, because I knew your background,
Yeah.
and it was so foreign to me, but I knew that we had to meld things together for my son, who wasn't raised like that,
Right.
versus your son, who was raised
yeah,
like that.
Yeah, you're
and
right.
so we
You're
had
right.
gone into depth, and we had tried a Methodist church, and we had
Yeah,
we had
yeah.
tried all these different churches, and I remember being at a church, and I can't remember what kind of church it was again,
Mm-hmm.
but the people were very animated, and they laid their hands on.
Yeah.
They laid their hands on the other person, and spiritual energy, and again, I don't know all the verbiage, but to me, that was Reiki.
Yeah.
Reiki, you lay your hands on. So it's like
Yep.
each church will call it something else,
Yep.
but at the end of the day, it's an energy transfer.
Right.
And so again, here goes this
Yeah.
whole thing of, why am I so nervous about Reiki? Because I'm
Yeah.
nervous about people scoffing at it, but it's like people have their own rendition in
Yep.
each denomination.
Yeah, you're
and
right
if
about
we
that.
were just to listen and kind of open our mind, we would identify that.
And here's another commonality. And you and I actually talked about this a little bit earlier. Prayer, right? We had talked about, what is it really to pray? And praying is really just, in my opinion, and I know. So I also want to say something, actually, before I say this, because I know that a lot of people are probably going to yell at their radios if they're feeling passionate about it. I am not just coming from a background of growing up in the church. I was actually accepted into the ministry. I was going to go to Concordia, which is a Lutheran school, to become a Lutheran pastor. And I had to write a pretty heavy thesis on what faith and things meant to me at 17 years old as I was going through this process, and had started down this road and had to take certain theology classes and things before I could even begin this step. So, and I'm not saying that but I have some knowledge is all I'm saying. So we were talking about prayer earlier, and I said, well, in my understanding, right, prayer, sure, it's communication with God, but it's also about putting an energy out there into the universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so some people can say, well, I'm communicating with God. Other people are like, I'm putting good juju out there. I'm putting good energy out there. I want, and it just depends on how you believe, right? So, I mean, prayer is one of those things where I think we connect with, we just call
It's
it
universal.
different things, right?
It's very universal.
Right, but we all believe in the sense that what we are saying.
It's manifestation.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, thank
it's
you.
speaking
Thank you.
things into
Yeah,
fruition.
Right. Yeah.
But you just direct it who you want to direct it
Right.
to.
Some people want to direct it to a higher power.
God,
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, whoever
Right.
you believe in. And then it's like, but at the end of the
Exactly.
day, it's manifestation. It's speaking things into fruition. It's putting your energy towards something.
Yes. Exactly.
It's all the same.
Yep.
But
It's where we can connect.
Right.
Right? We're not so different. When you really think about that. Again, taking that back to the Universalist Church. So, of course, in my mind, it would be easy for people to get together and worship who they worship, but also have an understanding that we're just using different terms for a similar thing. If that, I know I'm simplifying it, but
no, and I
it is
very
that
much
simple.
I very much felt like, okay, well, I will take what I need from who's standing up there and talking today.
Right.
Next week, I'll take what I need from that
Yes.
person. And I think individually, everybody did that.
I agree.
You took what you needed from that sermon or that message or that
Right.
prayer, and you took what you thought was appointed to you, and then
Yes.
you just did whatever with the rest of the information. That's what I did anyway.
Exactly.
If I felt like that it touched me in a certain way, that was meant for me. And I
Yes.
didn't care if it was a Lutheran pastor up there, a Catholic pastor, a Christian,
Right.
pagan. It didn't matter who was standing in front of me. I needed whatever message I needed at whatever time it was.
Right.
And collectively, that's what our church was all about.
Yeah. And I love that.
It was a great experience.
I have to be honest, when I hear you tell those stories, and you've told them often throughout Min and I have been married for 15 years. And I'm very proud of that, actually. First and foremost, I want to say that.
Thank you.
I think, thank you. And you've opened my eyes to a lot. And one of the things is when I came into our relationship, I very much was, I was lost, but I very much was ingrained in the church. Like I hadn't thought about stepping outside of that. And I'm going to challenge people, actually. I think, like, if you've only grown up with one way of doing things, then I think that you should challenge yourself to, look outside of that and beyond that, because you can learn a lot.
And you don't have to change.
No, you don't have to change.
You don't have to change your
No, that doesn't mean...
Yeah, whatever you identify as or group with. But just read a chapter about Buddhism.
Yeah.
Read a chapter about paganism.
Do you mind if I tell a quick story about that?
Sure.
So I remember one of the last... when pastors leave a church, right, because it's a job, and pastors leave the church, then you have to wait. Obviously, your church has to wait for another pastor to be hired on, right, to answer the call, as they say. And there was a point in time where the church that I was going to, our pastor had moved on, to another church, another ministry. I think he moved to Chicago or something, and that's not important. But anyway, while you're waiting for the new pastor to get hired, we had guest pastors coming in. And I remember one pastor, and this upsets me, actually. There was one pastor, he was a retired minister, Lutheran, who would come in, and he would also talk about the importance of the Buddhist faith and how he was impacted as a Christian by Buddhism in and he felt that there was a positive experience there. And he had actually encouraged people to look and learn about Buddhism, to the fact where it upset the elders in the church, and they told him that he could never come back and guest pastor. And in my opinion, he was probably he piqued my interest I was a teenager at that point, an older teenager. I was probably a junior in high school at this point, so 16, 17 years old. But I remember he was the first religious leader that I looked to and said, I want to sit down and have a conversation with this guy, because it was the first time that something outside of the Christian faith was introduced, but in a non-threatening manner. And he never once said, I deny Jesus, I'm a Buddhist, I deny God.
Sure.
No, he said it's a marriage of seeking peace within and seeking God. And I remember that even at 48 years old, dare I say. But I remember, obviously that impacted me, because I was 16, 17 years old. So 31 years later, I remember his message, right? Yeah. And I remember also the feeling of being so pissed. Yeah. I mean, just absolutely, I argued with my mom. I am not stepping foot in that church. These people are supposed to be accepting and loving and all these things, and they're telling this guy that he's not allowed to come back because
he spoke of Buddhism. He spoke outside of his box.
Right, and I remember that being the first time that I was just pissed. And I'm going to be honest with you, why I did not go to school to become a pastor, because I got sick and tired of the bullshit and what you're going to tell me. If I'm going to be Lutheran, I have to believe this, and if I believe anything different, then you're going to, basically tell me I'm wrong or I'm this or that, right? And it's fuck, we haven't learned much then, I guess.
Well, because, in my whole experience, too, with that church, it was and it's kind of just how we present education, right? You go to college, you learn all these things. The more you learn, the better, right?
Yeah.
The more you learn, the better.
Right.
Never stop learning.
Right.
Why isn't that applied to religion or spirituality? Why can we preach that on a level for education, but not, and maybe culturally, but not for religion and not for spirituality?
Yeah.
Because I always kind of looked at it, mostly because I'm a fat lady, but it's having,
Stop it.
I look at it you got this big bowl of candy in front of you, you're trick-or-treating, and you get to pick out which ones you want.
Right.
And the more you have, the happier you are. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's my fat lady analogy of somebody told me I can grab 6 things, and I'm grabbing all the 6 things, and I have 6 more things that I am happy about.
Right.
Why can't you apply that to spirituality or religion?
I agree.
And I've
I agree.
had this issue with organized religion for a very long time. So fast forward through our 15 years together, and really trying so hard to meld our two worlds.
Yeah.
I struggled. I did,
Yeah.
as you know, and we
Yeah.
kind of backed away because, I just had some unsettling experiences
Yep.
with words that were spoken. And that's not to say that these churches weren't delightful and everybody was nice. It's not
No,
like people were
right.
mean.
No,
It's just certain energies were off-putting and certain messages they just didn't need to resonate
Right.
with me. And of course, again, we have children.
Yeah.
My son was raised and baptized as an open spirit.
Yep. Yep.
So why on earth would I bring him to somewhere where it closed him in?
Well, and that's the thing.
And these
Yeah.
babies are watching us, and these kids
Right.
are listening to us. And I ultimately made the decision that, an organized religion we didn't have a place for that, me personally. And,
No, I agree with
it
that.
worked out.
Yeah.
It worked out. And again, nothing against anybody. I do love everybody. But for me personally, and for the message that I was trying to give to my kids,
Mm-hmm.
we didn't find anywhere that I felt comfortable.
Yeah.
I almost felt a little bit hypocritical. What I taught at home,
Yeah.
what we celebrated at home, the traditions that we had at home, and I feel like it did nothing but confuse the kids at church.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So
No, that
I
would-
struggled there.
I also think of it in a sense too as it's about being cultured, right? It's about having the opportunity. We didn't get to go to a Universalist church, but in a sense, the kids got to experience what it may have been like going to, because they had your viewpoints and how you see things, and they had mine. Mine have changed a lot.
You've transformed quite a bit, yeah.
Yeah, because it's funny. I want to say that I haven't abandoned the idea of God or Jesus or those things. I haven't, but I have abandoned the church, and I have my own reasons for that. But I have learned, though, that spirituality is very much a personal
Journey,
experience. Yeah. And I think you're right. Like I have learned through this. So I came into our relationship very narrow-minded because I've only experienced religion and spirituality one way.
Right.
That was it. So my growth, and we didn't meet until I was in my 30s, obviously. We've been together 15 years. I already said I was 48 years old. So I was into my 30s. And, I got to say that it was a learning experience for me, too, because it went from something for me that I was taught to be afraid of. I was taught to be afraid of any idea, not necessarily pagan, not any idea that went against what the church taught.
Yeah.
You should be afraid of. And I'm going to say, I was listening to an interview with Jelly Roll the other day on my way home. I was actually listening to the Dumb Blonde podcast, which is Jelly Roll's wife.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he said, because he's hugely Christian and advocates for Christian, but one of the things that he said is he's like, what do I have to be afraid of? If I truly believe in God and God is on my side, what do I have to be afraid of? And all of a sudden I was like, yeah, all this time, and this is crazy because 48 years old and this thought just clicked for me. All this time I've grown up being afraid, like if it talks this way or if it talks that way, you don't let it in your house. Don't listen to this music. Don't do this. Don't watch that movie. Don't talk about, I don't know, whatever.
X,
right?
Y, Z, yeah.
Yeah. Don't have gay friends because they might rub off on you. Don't do this. Don't do. And it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Because I love that thought, right? And ironically, a lot of the church hates Jelly Roll because,
Which is kind of, it's sad because he is Christian and identifies and he advocates.
And he goes
it's-
hard for it, too, if you ever listen to him talk.
Yeah, so that sucks for him.
Yeah.
And that's unnerving for me. And it's sad because it is. It's true. What do I have to be afraid of? I'm true to myself.
Exactly.
Right. I answer to the
Right.
man upstairs.
Right. Yeah. If you are secure in who you are and what your beliefs are, what do you have to be afraid of? And that's absolutely the message that I took from that. Yeah, like, what the fuck do I have to be afraid of?
Yeah.
Like, if I'm confident in what I am, then what am I afraid of? Right?
And so I've got to say, being here in this little country town that I love so much and doing the things that we do here, I have met some of the most amazing people in the widest array of walks of life have come through this door.
Some barreled right through the door,
oh,
too.
some barreled. I have this one, my soul sister.
Tell
my
that
soul
story.
sister. I'm gonna name drop Miss Harriet. I love her. She stalked me before we were even open. She
Yes,
could not
that's
get
right.
her hands on me fast enough, and man, have I ever been blessed with somebody amazing. But anyway,
Yeah, she's turned out to be a true friend.
she
She is a truly amazing person.
is amazing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree.
Very devout Christian. We have talks often, and I have other clients that, and again, so just to preface, I don't typically talk politics or religion. That's actually one of the rules here
Yep.
for myself and my
So you
employees.
see, you don't talk about politics, religion. You're only missing her or him.
Unless, and I bend the rules a little bit because I'm the owner and I can, but it's only when I feel comfortable in a person's energy.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer that the universe sent me this person at this time for this reason, for this lesson, for this message.
Yeah.
And I'm a firm believer in that. You know, I've met people that live locally and they're just coming into me for the first time in 4 years. And they, you know, we connect on a level that we may not have connected on 2 years ago. Or, you know, so I'm a huge believer in synchronicity and timing. I have had the most amazing experiences here with devout Christian. I have clients that are Catholic, and
Absolutely.
one of my favorite things to brag about is the fact that I have this huge client list of Amish.
I know.
I love my Amish people, and they love it here. And so
Yeah, they're
incredible.
And there is a group of people, right, who I don't want to say we're taught to be weary of, right, but we have a misunderstanding of, for sure.
Oh, there's a huge gap between cultures.
Yeah,
And so
right.
what I love about, so just to put that out there, obviously not everybody knows me. I'm covered in tattoos. From my fingers to my shoulders, my back, my legs. I'm covered
Yes.
in tattoos. Typically, in the Amish culture, not all, some, because I've learned from my lady that they're, you know, different communities are more lax and lenient versus more strict depending on who their bishop is. But I will never forget the Amish waltzing in here. They couldn't get in here fast
literally.
enough. Literally.
Can we tell that story?
Oh my God, no.
No, we can't. Okay.
Oh my God. I'm taking it back to the beginning when
Yeah,
they
no,
first
I know.
figured out what we were doing here and came in. Now, a lot of you are probably like, why would Amish come and see you? Massage for them is holistic medicine.
Yes.
Chiropractic is holistic medicine.
Yep.
Even though it's English to them, it's holistic healthcare, and
Yep.
they swear by it.
Yep.
I remember them coming in, and I hid my arms behind my back out of respect.
Sure.
I don't know. I struggle. I didn't know if I didn't want to be judged. I didn't want to be disrespectful. I didn't really know what to think because I thought, man, why would they approach me if I'm like basically the epitome of what they're taught to fear?
Right.
Now, rewind a little bit. Funny story. The countertops here in the spa are from Amish Mills.
Yep.
Down
They're all
the
live
road,
edge.
local. So yeah, all live edge stuff. So I'll never forget when we went to go pick those out and pick them up. There's little Amish kids, and you know we get out of the truck, and you know Sean's covered in tattoos as well.
Right.
You know my daughter Nora, she had purple hair shaved on one side.
Yep.
And we get out of the truck and the kids take off running.
Yeah.
And I remember Nora
Oh my
saying,
God, the devil.
yeah, Nora goes, wait, I wanted to talk to you. Wait, I want to play with you. And I remember, you know, trying to get her to understand, like, you know, listen. Huge misunderstanding, huge miscommunication.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Oh, yeah.
when they came in here, I remember making sure I had a cardigan to put on, making sure I hid my arms. I mean, I have the word heathen tattooed on my arm.
Yep.
Being that branch of paganism that I choose to follow. And I thought, man, I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to scare anybody. I really love everybody and want to give them
Right.
the chance to come here and get what they need from me. We don't have to be pals, whatever.
Right.
These people have become so important to me, the entire family. I
Right.
mean, David and I see the parents, the kids. I mean, we have them coming in from they bus in here to see
Yeah.
us.
Yep.
And I will never forget being nervous of how I was going to come across. And I thought, how are they approaching me? I'm covered in tattoos. David's
Right.
covered in tattoos.
Yeah.
And so I'll never
True.
forget
It's
how,
true. I didn't think about that too, but yeah, that's very true.
in, I guess I'll name drop her because I highly doubt she's going to listen to this.
Yeah.
Miss Katie, I love her to pieces, but her sessions with me are so important because she picks my mind and I pick her mind, and we
Yeah.
talk about culture and religion.
Yeah.
My absolute favorite thing to do is to learn about others.
Yeah.
And to
Yep.
learn about religion, because I'm not versed in that. I
Yeah.
didn't grow up in that. So, you've been a guide in our 15 years if I don't understand what something means, because I wasn't brought up in that.
Yeah.
So having these conversations with Amish and learning what I've learned about them,
Yes.
and her asking me questions.
Right.
I mean, it just gives me
incredible.
goosebumps.
Yeah, it's incredible.
For her to be open
Yep.
and just accept me for me, it's to the point now where they show up here on days that we're closed to ask me if I can help with, somebody's high blood iron. And
Right.
the way that they view me is such a compliment.
Yes.
And I absolutely adore these people.
Yeah. You've been accepted into their community.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, she made the comment once, we joked. She said, well, as long as you don't tell the bishop will never know. What happens here stays here.
That's
And
right.
she's so freaking cute. But,
Yep.
just for her to open her
Yeah.
door to me and allow me to ask the questions, and for her to freely answer me, I
Right.
learned so much. They don't celebrate Christmas.
Right, and you would think that
I
they
would have
would,
thought,
right?
and
Yeah.
they celebrate in January. They don't celebrate in December.
Right.
And, so we've had these extensive conversations, and their culture blows my mind.
Yeah.
I've asked her on several occasions to adopt me.
And isn't it incredible when you can sit across the table? I had a similar experience, but not in regards to like religion or spirituality. I remember when I was young, I was working in New York City doing HIV outreach, and I was the minority on my team. My team was primarily Black, African American, and Hispanic. I was like so there was a team of 10 of us, and there was 2 white people on the team, right? And so very much a similar experience, again, just not with religion, but being able to of course it took a little bit to get
Open up
with each
and-
other, right? Yeah, exactly. Like, but once that comfort is there and that friendship is there, and that you have an understanding that neither person has the intent of harm,
Yep.
that we're just really trying to learn. Like, so I remember those being the most incredible conversations.
Yeah.
And then bring that back
And learning
here,
those cultures.
Yeah.
And learning those cultures. And,
Right.
I remember even Maddox dating a beautiful young lady in a Puerto Rican family.
Yes,
And
right.
we got to learn quite a bit from them.
Right,
You know,
right.
I
Celebrate
want,
those differences,
yes,
right?
I want to learn
Celebrate that.
everything.
Yeah.
And so I also have clients that come from Catholic backgrounds and Christian backgrounds, and I ask questions and they ask me questions. Now,
Yeah.
again, I don't put it out there that, I'm pagan in my background. I don't, unless
there
I'm, well, the cat's out of the bag. Because it really just is not relevant to my service. I
No.
mean, I do what I do here regardless.
Right.
So it's not relevant to my skill, but if people ask me questions, I'm an open book, and so I don't hide.
Yeah.
But I don't put it out there either, because I did have a negative experience.
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. You want to talk about it?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
I
go
don't
ahead.
and I don't want to give it too much attention because it just still makes me smirk, but
No, but it's important.
it is. So, I had an individual come here and get a massage, and their spouse also came here to get massage, and they just raved about me. Oh my goodness, we were going to Syracuse every week.
Right.
I'm so glad that you're here. That's the best massage I've ever had, and shooby dooby. And, wonderful woman. You know, we had talked a little bit through the session, and not everybody talks, but her and I had talked through the session, and I'll never forget, I was cashing her out, and we had set up a bunch of appointments because she was just over the moon. And she just was so happy that there was somebody close, and we had set up like 6 months worth of sessions. And I had a business card on the front desk. There was a ton of business cards, different local businesses and things like that. And it was for a psychic medium.
Oh, okay.
She had left her card there. And the woman looked down at the card, and she looked up at me and said, "Do you believe this?" And I had this like clog in my throat, like, oh, I know that tone. I know that tone. The entire energy shifted.
Yep, everything just changed in that moment.
And in a flash, I had to hurry up and think of like, Jesus, what am I going to say? Because yes, 100% yes, I believe in that. 100% yes. As a gifted person,
yes,
in that way, absolutely yes. But I needed to make sure that this person was comfortable, and you know, you kind of feel like you're on eggshells, and that's annoying anyway,
Absolutely.
and that's a whole different subject. But I remember replying, you know, I do believe that there are gifted people out there. And she kind of smiled at me and paid and walked away. It wasn't 20 minutes later that I had a voicemail that basically stated that you need to cancel all the appointments that we made, and that it's unfortunate because she had the best massage ever, but she just cannot come into an establishment where spirits are running amok.
Yeah, we just have just all over the studio,
like racing, like racing.
So
about.
if you ever hear a mysterious voice in the background of
We're
this
not
podcast,
even gonna get into that.
it's just that there's spirits running amok. No,
So, and I just was like, come on, man, you
Right.
know. And so, she doesn't know how to connect with people that are different.
right?
That's a closed-minded person.
Yes,
I'm not offended by that. That doesn't affect me. That makes her life a little bit more difficult, and that's just my opinion. But I have learned to be so open, and there's times where I've had struggles here. I mean, anybody who knows me here knows that it's been a roller coaster, small business, all sorts of other things.
Oh, sure.
And
Yeah.
I've had clients that have asked to pray with me and pray over me. Now, I don't believe in your God, but absolutely, if you are going to take time out of your day, your energy, your love, and pour it into me,
Right.
oh my God, absolutely. I would never
Absolutely.
shut that down.
Right.
That is such a gift
yep,
for you to give me your energy. And sure, you bring it from a place that I don't necessarily see eye to eye with, but
right.
how amazing is it that you're taking your time out to pray over me and to be concerned about me and
Right.
my stuff,
Right.
you know?
Because that's a place where we can come together, right? That's not a thing of judgment as much as it's a, you know, let's do this together. This is where we meet in the road, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, meeting people where they're at. I say that all the time.
That's how you connect with people.
Absolutely.
That's how you connect with people. They knew I was different. They knew I didn't believe in their God, but they were gifting me that.
Yep. Right. And I think that's so important because that's exactly how I open the podcast, like coexist. How do we do that, right? How do you meet people where they're at, and how do you? And the thing is you could have said, I don't believe in your God. No,
Right.
you can't
No,
pray
thank
with
you.
me,
No,
right?
no,
But
right.
How hard was it for you to just swallow and not even be offended by it, right? It's not even an offense thing. It's just like, absolutely, we can.
I
do
could have
that,
poo-pooed
right?
that.
Yeah, right. But it's a thing of exactly, let's coexist.
I didn't
do
look
that.
at the religious tag on it. I
Because-
didn't look
right,
at the
because there isn't one,
label.
really.
I
There
looked at the
isn't one.
love they were giving me.
Exactly.
I looked at the energy
Yes.
they were giving me. I didn't
Right.
say, well, I don't know Jesus and I don't know your God. I looked at it as they are
Love.
sending me their love
Right.
and kindness and their energy.
And that's a universal message. You don't need God for that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because love is a universal language, I think, that
Absolutely.
everybody can speak. And when you truly are leading in love or leading with the heart,
That's how you connect.
that's how you can, right.
That's
Right,
the only way you
exactly.
connect, in my
Right.
opinion. It's because there are any other emotion puts up boundaries.
Yep.
If you just love people where they're at,
Mm-hmm.
that it doesn't mean that you have to like what they do or say or accept what they do or say. But if you just
Yeah.
truly love them because you're a loving person, your heart is so open.
You know, it brings me back. So on the pilot episode of Vertigo, Zach was the guest on that show, and he had we had a similar conversation to this, and he said, what if the people that are in the dark are just lacking that love in their life, right? They're just because they are pushed outside of it. Maybe it's a traumatic past, whatever. Something is broken there, right? And I understand that we can't fix everybody, and I wish that it was as simple as just loving people enough. And we know that can't always happen, right? But the fact is, if we lead with that, though, then we at least are showing some compassion for somebody, and that can be life-changing for someone.
And what's kind of the opposite emotion to love is fear.
Yeah, right.
And so when you are leading with fear,
right,
it takes over.
Yeah.
How can you love somebody if you're scared of them?
Right.
How can you love yourself if you're scared that you're going to mess up?
No, it's
how do
true.
how do you lead with love if you truly are guided with fear and shame?
Right.
And guilt,
Right.
and again, this is not all religions doing this. This is
No.
something. Honest to God, this is something, and I want to make this point, and maybe I'll get slung up for it. I don't care. I don't care what pew you sit in, at what establishment, for what denomination. If you do not listen to your own intuition and energy, and you allow yourself to feel those things, you got to hold yourself accountable.
Yes.
Because I don't care who you sit with and who stands in front of you
to.
and what words they say. At the end of the day, you have to take accountability in how you're going to proceed through life.
Yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah. So that's the thing.
Yep.
I don't want to sit here and shit on religion. Religion is amazing.
No,
A religion
I
has
don't see
so
it
many
that way.
positive benefits.
Yeah.
Spirituality, I don't want to sit here and shit on the church, because these establishments have saved people's lives.
Absolutely.
They've given, and
They can be a light in the darkness for people. Literally,
it's not for me.
Right.
It is for so many other people. So I just want to make that message that you have to take the message that is given to you, and it's your responsibility to go into the world and carry on the way that you should carry on.
I agree. And I think, too, for me, I'm going to bring it all the way back to coexist. Like, if we really, truly want to coexist with people, then we have to also learn acceptance and tolerance, and have to understand that, if we believe something and we are true to that, then we shouldn't feel threatened by other people's stuff. The only reason that we might feel threatened is because we're then questioning our beliefs. And if you're questioning your belief, there's a reason for that.
Right.
And so you as a person need to look at that. Like, if this is triggering me to have this gut response, whether it's anger, fear, whatever it is, you as a person have to go back and analyze that.
You're
and
responsible
look at
for your individuality.
Right.
You
Right.
can be part of a group and an
Right.
organization, but at the end of the day, you lay down by yourself.
And truthfully, you can not come back as that one client decided not to, really.
And that's fine. And I didn't have a rebuttal, and I completely respected her choice.
Exactly.
Silly
as it may
there was
sound,
other
right?
people here
Yeah.
that got a little bit, their noses were bent a little bit. I had other employees at the time that were, offering different modalities that, had their nose bent a little bit. But
Right.
I respect her, because I wouldn't want somebody to talk me out of my opinion either.
Exactly.
So I
It's-
just,
see?
and I
That's
just
exactly what I
sent
mean.
her love
You're right.
and respected her decision. And I thought, I want everybody to walk through this door and feel comfortable. And if
Right.
she did not, there's nothing I could do. I didn't do anything for her to feel uncomfortable. I didn't do anything. She had the best massage of her life, according to her.
Right.
This is something that this is a personal battle that she has with
Yep.
herself, and she will see how it pans out as fit. You know what I mean? Like,
agree.
that's for her. She has to take that individual responsibility. That's another thing. Stop getting offended at everything.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't have time. You know
I
how much
know.
energy it
Oh
takes
my
to be
gosh.
offended about something?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I could have flown off the handle. But also, that would take the energy away from the 3,000 other clients that I have
Yep.
that absolutely just adore this place, and
Right.
David, and, so, yeah, you really have an individual responsibility to carry yourself as such, regardless of what you hear.
Yep.
under a church roof or wherever you choose to hear your word.
No, I agree. Lead with love. Lead with love.
And connect and learn. And what does it hurt? What if you sit and listen to a TED Talk about Buddhism or whatever? You don't need to apply it to yourself.
No, and I'm going to go back on the jelly roll comment, actually. I wish I could take credit for that. But, if whatever your beliefs are, if you are firm in your belief, whatever it is, then what is going to threaten you, And so, with that being said, listeners, if you're enjoying these conversations, then check us out on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and let your voice be heard. Feel free to comment. I love to hear that stuff. And if you are ever interested in being a guest and sitting across the table, these are the kind of conversations that I want to be had. This is the space for that. This is the reason that Vertigo is here. I appreciate the growth that we can do as people having these conversations. I think it's incredible. I think it's absolutely incredible.
And I think that we also need to decipher the difference between a debate and a conversation. I think too many of us try to debate.
Yeah.
Unless people just want to have conversation. Let's bring the conversation back.
I almost cut you off.
Fun.
I almost cut you off, which that's not a conversation. If you're no, seriously.
That's a marriage. No, just kidding.
It's also the excitement of being involved in a conversation that you have some fire and passion about. No, you're right. I think too many people want to debate, and not enough people want to conversate. And there is, in my opinion, I think you're right. There is a huge difference. When I'm debating, I'm not focusing on what the other person is saying. That's the biggest difference. When I'm debating, I'm thinking about how I'm going to win. Right. And debating is a competitive sport. That's why they have debate teams in schools and shit, right? Is because it's competitive. But when you're having a conversation, hopefully you're also actively listening to the person that you're conversating with, or people, if there's multiple people, But you're actively listening, and you're not so quick to just want to jump in.
I was going to say, there's a difference between being wired to hear and wired to listen. Mm-hmm. For me personally, coming up through my journey, I learned to listen and not just hear.
Yeah.
That opened my mind bigger.
Yeah.
Because, some people just come from this place where they need to survive or protect or have a rebuttal or everything's an argument, everything's a war. My childhood was war. Still is if you hang out with the right people in my family. Bunch of assholes. But I learned. Irish. Oh God, freaking kill each other. I learned to just hear and have a response.
Right.
I had to teach myself to listen.
Yep.
And it's two different skill sets, and it's so important because if you just want to hear and you just hear people, you're not going to be as open-minded. You're not going to be able to offer anything good to a conversation, and you're just going to want to debate. And so
I agree.
Be wired to listen.
Yep.
And not so much to just hear and have a rebuttal.
No, you're right. Yeah, listening is a different skill set altogether. Listening you have to then take it in and wrestle with it. And the truth of the matter is we all have feelings that come up about conversations. It can be a joyful, and like I said, not all feelings are necessarily negative. It's not necessarily having a conversation that brings up like that pang of like, oh, I want to say something about that. Sometimes it's joy and agreement.
Yeah.
Those are just as much listening to and realizing like, oh, I connect with this person here. But also, how can you grow? Because you grow from where you have your difference in opinions or the disagreements.
I hope there's a part two to this. I hope that we have a guest that comes from a background that I can learn from.
Yeah, I think
maybe a Buddhist or. Because I love learning. I love learning.
Yeah, and I definitely think that this is the space for it.
Yeah.
You've built that through AIR, being a place that people can not just coexist, actually, even go beyond that and actually sit down and challenge maybe in a healthy way, challenge some growth, but then also here with the Vertigo Studios, I think this is also a place like, let's have these conversations, these
Let's
deeper
learn. I
conversations,
wanna
and
learn.
from
Yeah.
ourselves, So we could go on this topic, I think, for a long time.
Yes.
And but one, I want to tell you that I appreciate you coming on and kind of saving the day in a sense, because like Minna was talking about, today we had two guests scheduled. We were actually going to record 2 episodes back to back. Just a lot of scheduling conflicts today. Just a lot of shit going on that didn't allow that to happen.
But in true Minna form, I knew that is how it was meant to happen. We were meant to
Absolutely.
have this topic come up because
I think so too.
he had other topics he was going to talk about with
Yep.
those other 2 guests. So maybe
Yep.
somebody out there needed to hear this conversation.
Absolutely, I agree.
I'm a huge believer in that. So what happened was meant to be, and I hope that it
agree.
sparks for conversation in your own home.
Yeah.
At your own table with your own kids and your mom and your family and whomever,
Friends
coworkers,
and
yeah. Have these
exactly.
conversations,
Yep.
man. So this,
Yeah, because I think that what will be found is there is more things that hold us together as humans and as people than there are that divide us and that drive us apart. And so, Vertical listeners, I challenge that. If you really want to let your head spin, then that means you really got to listen to what other people are saying, not just hear them, but listen to what other people are saying. And I think that we can all grow from that. I mean, so let Vertigo be a little light in your life, I guess.
yeah.
I really appreciate everybody tuning in and listening in on this episode. Feel free to drop comments. Like I said, you can find Vertigo on Instagram. You can find it on Facebook, and you can find it on TikTok. You can listen to this on Apple Podcasts. You can also listen on Spotify. You can also listen on YouTube. So, and like I said, don't be afraid to drop a comment. If you want to email me to be a guest on the show, that's vertigopod@gmail.com. Vertigopod, that's VERTIGOPOD @gmail.com. So, if you want to drop a line. But you can also hit up Instagram and Facebook if you're interested in being a guest. So, anything that you want to say in closing? Because, again, I wicked appreciate you being here.
No.
And I think this conversation, like I said, I could keep this going forever. But,
No, I think it's a great topic. Like I said, especially with the current events and how heavy things are feeling in the world. I think this is a topic that really it's probably at the forefront of people's mind, and we just got to drop that first domino,
I think so too.
Get those heads spinning and get those conversations going.
That's right.
So.
Did you hear that? Get your head spinning. All right, Vertigo listeners, thank you so much for partaking in another episode of Vertigo. We will be here every Sunday night at 7 p.m. for your listening pleasure. And don't be afraid to pass this on to a friend or family member. And word of mouth is the best flattery or something like that. I don't know what the saying is, but y'all are following me, I'm pretty sure. So, Vertigo Nation, let your head spin, and we'll see you next week.